In this video, we're going to talk about the basic user interface components and layout options of InnoVia Studio. And we'll start this by opening InnoVia. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start InnoVia. To do that, I'm going to come to the icon on my desktop, and I actually have two here. This first one is InnoVia 5D, and that's a 32-bit version of InnoVia, and that's what we use to connect to Sage Estimating. Below that is InnoVia 5D64. That's a 64-bit version of InnoVia, and that's the one we'll use today. It's a faster version, so if you're not connecting to Sage, that's the one you actually want to use. So I'm just going to double click it to start it. Okay, so here's the InnoVia homepage. First thing I want to talk about is these sample files over here. This first one is component types, and this isn't a model, or I should say this isn't a building or structure necessarily. Instead, it's a file with most of the elements that InnoVia supports modeled into it. And this is useful for setting up InnoVia because you've got all those elements modeled already. You can just make sure all your quantity conditions are set up and all your elements are mapped to an estimate. And those are some things we'll talk about in a later video. Below that, we've got our architectural model, and below that, we've got a structural model. Up here, we've got the help documents. I want to talk about tutorials for a little bit. I'm going to click those. So the tutorials are step-by-step instructions on using InnoVia. So if you look here to the left, we have our different chapters. So kind of in the beginning, just getting started. This is introduction and some basic information. Then we've got creating and opening models, browsing and visualizing, examining and validating. So the different types of functions are grouped together in a chapter and then broken up into subchapters. So if there's something that you have a question on and that's not covered in this video, I would definitely recommend checking out these tutorials. I'll go ahead and close those. Now I'm going to open up the file we just created. Now we have all these tiles here. These are the recent file tiles. They're showing me files I've opened up recently, and I can open up any of these. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to use this one we just created here. I'm going to click that. This first window that opens up is a preload window. It shows me all the element types that are in the model. If I wanted to, I could unselect some of these groups, and then they wouldn't be loaded into the current session. I'm going to leave everything checked here. Just select OK. So here is InnoVia, and here's the model. Let's first talk about the user interface. So up top here we have the ribbon, and on the ribbon we have individual tabs. And so each tab has a group of functions on it. They're kind of related to each other or similar. Below that we have our panels, and each panel serves a specific function. So for example, over here I have this browse panel, so that's how we break down the model by grouping elements together. And if I select one of these groups here, once I select that group, we'll see those are shown down here in the selection panel. And then over here we have the model panel, which shows the model in 3D. I can change the panel layout if I want. So for example, I can come here to the selection panel and I can just click it here and drag it over to move it, and I'll just dock it over here, and let me expand it here. So now I've changed my layout, and if I like that and I want to keep that layout for future use, I can do that. To do that, I'd come up here and I hover my mouse on the ribbon here, and this brings out this layout menu. What I want to do is choose user, and then come in here and click save current, and then name it. And then there's that layout saved for me for next time. I'll click OK. Now to go back to that default view, I'll just hover my mouse, click default. So that takes us to the first view that we were in, or the first layout we were in when we opened up InnoVia. And that's pretty useful if you get too many panels open, or you're not sure what panels are open or not. You can always go back to the default view. That concludes this video on the user interface and layouts of InnoVia. Up next, we're going to talk about the browse hierarchy and also how we break down the model using element properties.